Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. While my channel is still on lockdown and I've only got like 15 minutes, I thought it'd be cool to do some shorter studies showing the origins of the languages. In this case, we're going to look at Greek and Hebrew. As you can see here, we've got Ancient Hebrew, which is known as Paleo-Hebrew, is also known as Phoenician, and that's where we get the word phonetic from. And on this side, we've got the Greek alphabet. Well, not quite all of the Greek alphabet. There have been characters added since this, but these are the original majors of the Greek alphabet. But what I want to point out to you here is the similarities between the Hebrew alphabet and the Greek alphabet. First of all, you take the first letters, Aleph and Beth, Alpha and Beta, and what do you got? That's where we get the word alphabet from. But the Aleph, as you can see, I've highlighted here, as well as Ayin, and the Alpha, Epsilon, Iota, Omicron, Upsilon. These are your vowels in the Greek language, and Aleph and Ayin, of course, your vowels in the Hebrew language. This being determined by a series of marks, which I'm not going to go into because we're so short of time in 15 minutes, but they changed the sound of these. This one letter would represent your A, E, I, O, or U, and this would represent a number of them as well. So these are your two vowels, and these are your main vowels, and to a lesser extent, we've got the omega. As you may remember, in the Bible, God said, I am the Alpha and the Omega. So you've got the first letter, Alpha, and the last letter, Omega. So that's another thing about the Hebrew. If we go over to a more modern Hebrew, it's got the chart here. Each one of these letters has a numeric value. This is one of the ways they made the Masoretic texts. Here you can see that there are 22 characters. However, these finals are added in to bring up the numbers, and they are the same. You've got Kaf, Kaf, Mem, Mem, Nun, Nun. So they're the same. But let's go back and begin this with the similarities between Greek and Hebrew. We have the Aleph, which in Greek is also a vowel. Now I want you to look at this Aleph. It's turned on its side, but that is definitely the shape of an A. It stands for an oxen head. That's where it was derived from. And in Greek, they stood it straight up and removed the sidebars of it, so we get the A. And then we've got the Beth, which really doesn't look that much like a B unless you were to flip it over and straighten this up and it'd look like a lowercase b. But this is Beth, which means house. And then we've got Beta. And then we've got Gimel in place of the C. You know, in English we have A, B, C, D, E, F, G. We've added our own consonants and our own vowels along with the ones in the Greek. So we've got Gimel, but it looks like a 7 or an L turned backwards and upside down. And what do we have over here? We got that same shape turned forwards. If you were to flip this, it would be a perfect L, but it's not an L. It's a gamma. So you've got Gimel, Gamma. And then you've got Daleth. I want you to look at the shape of the Daleth here. It's kind of long triangulated. It is the D letter. And over here for the D letter in Greek, we've got Delta. So we've got Daleth and Delta, and we've got that same overall shape. As a matter of fact, in Old Hebrew, in some writings of Hebrew, you can find the Daleth as a perfect pyramid or triangular shape. It means door. And then in Greek, we've got the epsilon added, which is the E sound, which we don't have in the Hebrew. In Hebrew, you put a lot of consonants together, and they are separated sometimes by the Aleph, but other times not so. But this is an added letter, so there is no, in the Hebrew, there's no equative letter to it. Then we've got Zeta. Zeta is, of course, the Z sound, and its closest relative in the Hebrew would be the Zion. And if you take this, which looks like a capital I, and kind of bend this, you'll get that Z. And we'll go back to this in a minute when we get to another Z letter in the Greek. And then as we follow, we've got the H here. This is a perfect H like we find in English today. This is the eta. And of course here in the Hebrew we've got the H, which is the hand or the palm. And it can make the he sound. Left out of this is the ha or the hey sound, but that is your H. And also you've got the heth. That is also an H. If you remove the top line and the bottom line of this dual square system here, you would have a perfect H. So you've got heth. And then we've got theta, which is a circle with a symbol inside it that kind of looks like a sideways I here turned on its side. What do we have in the Hebrew? We've got the teth. Circle with a symbol in it. So very similar there too. Then we've got the iota, which is the I, which is not found in Hebrew. That again is covered by the alif, as are all the vowels, like with the ayin. But we do have the kappa, and that is a K. That is our modern K, kappa. And over here, what do we have in Hebrew? We've got the kaf, or the kaf. And look at the shape of that. That is a K turned backwards. So that is where that is derived from. And then here we have the lambda, which is K, L, and of course in English we have the J. But the J does not exist in the Hebrew nor in the Greek, at least in this portion of the Greek. In other words, when we think of the name Jesus, it's actually Yeshua in the Hebrew. So there is no J. But we do have the Kaf and the Kappa, and then we've got the lambda. And what do we have as an equation to it, or that equates to it in Hebrew? We've got the lamed, which is, look at there, that L shape. So we've got lamed and lambda. And then after L, what comes after L? M, which is represented here by mu, or mu. Actually, it is mu. But what do we have in the Hebrew? We've got the mem, and look at that. That kind of looks like a cursive M. And it makes that M sound, the mem. And right after that, we've got the nun. And right there you have it, the N. And of course, in Greek, what have we got? The nu, or nu, which is the N sound. And then we've got the Z, or Xi, and this equates also closely to Zion. You've got this laid on its side here, which looks like an I, but if it were standing straight up, you would have this character here from the ancient Hebrew. And then after Xi, we've got Omicron. Omicron is, of course, a vowel. It is the O. And what do we have in Hebrew? Well, an O can be represented in alif, but more often it's represented by ayin. And look at how similar these two look. This was signified, this means eye, as in to look or to behold, to look out the eye. That's where the ayin comes from. It's where we get the word eye. Then after that, we have the pi, and which can also be P, as in it's the P sound. And over here in Hebrew, we have the P, which is not really that similar to the pi. The pi actually looks like a modern Hebrew H in a way. But we have the P, and this can also be the PH sound, the phi, which also gives the F sound. And then, of course, we've got the Sadi, which doesn't equate over here, but it makes the S or the TS sound. I guess you could say it's close to the S in the Greek, which we're going to next, which is the sigma. We've got the sigma here, and look at the distinctive shape of the sigma. It kind of looks like an E, but if you lay it on its back, it would look like a W. And oddly enough, we've got the shin here, which kind of has that same W look to it, which makes the S sound. But we've also got the samek, which is also the S sound, and if you were to get rid of 3 of these lines here, you would have that 3 that looks like kind of W. You'd have to lay it on its side, or it looks similar to this. But this also kind of is reminiscent of Old Ogham language. And if we go down to the next letter, we've got T, which is ta. And over here in the Hebrew, we've got ta as well. And this is represented by an X looking shape, but if you were to stand this up, it would kind of look like a lowercase t. This is obviously where the T was derived from. And we've also got the upsilon here. Now, upsilon in the Greek language is the U. This would be represented by the aleph in the Hebrew language, but I don't think it's any coincidence that it looks like a Y, because after all, the old class saying A-E-I-O-U and sometimes Y, which is where we get the Y sound, the Ya, and that would be most closely represented of the Yod. Let's see, where am I at here? Here it is. The Yod sound, which kind of has a little bit of a Y to it. The Yod sound, perhaps this is the one that means palm. I may have gotten this mixed up with the He. But at any rate, let's continue. Next after that, we've got the Phi or the Phi. This can make the Phi or the Phi sound. Well, what do we have over here in Hebrew? We've got that Phi, which, you know, we've got that kind of a hook echo here looking thing. And you've got kind of a hook here, not saying that that's particularly where it came from, but that's the closest thing to it. And then we've got the Chi, or the key, and that makes the CH, or the key sound. And we have to go to a later version of Hebrew to find that. We find that with the Cheth, which derives from the Teth. So we see here we've got the Cheth, and like I said, you'll notice that these are numeric value, and these are the same here. And this is one of the way they made up the Masoretic texts. And then we go to the Shin here, the Psi, which is most closely represented to the Shin. In New Median Hebrew, we've got the Shin here, which looks very similar. If you remove this bottom piece off it, you've got that distinctive W look as you've got in Shin. And if you go back to the Old Hebrew, you've got the Shin represented just by a W. And then you've got the Omega, which is again representative of more of a voweletic sound. And I put a lighter circle around it because it's not quite as strong as the Omicron here, and not used as often for that. It's moreover used. These also have numeric values, just like the Hebrew. But anyway, in Hebrew, we do have a Q, which is Quaf. And we do have a V, which is Vav, which can also be a W. It's more often used as properly as Vav, but it can be vowel. And this is where the V and the W come from in the Latin language. So anyway, my point is just to point out to you, what is the parent of the Greek language? Well, obviously it's the Hebrew language. The Hebrew culture is older than the Greek. And from the Greek, what do we get? What was its offshoot language? Well, it was Latin. And from Latin, what do we get? Well, from Latin, we get English, we get Spanish, we get Portuguese, we get Italian, we get Romanian. And when we think of English, what all did that develop into? Well, it evolved into English as in used into the UK, American English, Canadian English, English used around the world, quite frankly, also Australia. And Spanish, what did it evolve into? Well, it evolved into Portuguese. It evolved into two derivatives of Spanish, Castilian Spanish, which is used in Spain and in parts of South America, and Mexican Spanish, which was brought over by the conquistadors. So anyway, we can see here that you can almost see the migrations of the tribes of Israel in this and how the language passed down, that Hebrew is the parent language of the Greek language and many languages of the world. So there it is, submitted for your approval or for your disapproval. These are not all the Greek characters. There are more added. And like I said, in Hebrew there are more added, such as the Cheth. But you can see that the letters did change in the New Median, and perhaps we'll go into that in another study as why they changed. Actually, they changed because of the Babylonian captivity. But like I said, there you have it, submitted for your approval. The good, bad, and the ugly, and there it is.